there was no room in the inn. So that was a way of deterring us from actually coming in to register. But there were people in the community, the Fosters, who are here today, who opened their doors for us because they had some rental property. So we were allowed to rent from them and walk to class and that kind of thing. And I think Mr. Foster had some concerns about our safety. So as a result, he had one of his buddies who was a cab driver to come by on just about every morning and toot his horn, and if we were ready to roll out, he'd drop us off as close to campus as possible. So the community fell in line to try and make this thing work and make it be smooth. Now, as far as Auburn University is concerned, I always had some concerns about the fact that they didn't do all of the things that they could do. When it comes back to the Civil Rights Bill, you can legislate rights if you like, but you can't make people accept them. And that was the problem at Auburn University. We received catcalls. We were on the first floor of the suite, and as people would come through the quadrangle, if our windows were up, you would hear things that you didn't really want to hear. There were some northern whites who were friendly with us, who were kind of athletic, and we'd go down to play ping pong, and if I had 6 balls, by the time the 6th one hit the floor, that was it, because they would step on them. People would stand around and watch us play and laugh like we were just something to watch, some sideshow. So it was not a good experience for me from that standpoint. It was not what college life in my thought should have been like. It was very confining. It was at a point where my parents and my sisters and my relatives that were close by always were concerned about, well, how is he doing today? What happened today? Was he walking across campus at a late class? Because I had a welding class that was like at 7 o'clock at night. And at that point in time, Auburn wasn't very well lit. This was my second time back on the campus or near the campus in 50 years. I just didn't feel welcome here. And that's kind of how I've felt about the situation. Now, one thing that still bothers me today is when I first started thinking about Auburn University, I would listen to Auburn football on the radio. And I would hear the crowds roar, and I'd say, well, this would be a wonderful place to be. Never knowing that at some point in time I would think about even attending Auburn University. And as I reflect back on it now, I say if the athletes at Auburn had stepped up at the time that we were here initially, things could have been a whole lot different. I look at things today and I say, okay, what happens if football team was all white again? They wouldn't be close to the top, because every position, and at one point in time we were not allowed to play what they call the skill positions. But now Cam Newton played a skill position. If it hadn't been for Willie Wyatt and Anthony Lee, there would never been a Bo Jackson. So I challenge all of the young people here to think about those kinds of things. The things that are going on in Auburn today, as far as you being allowed to walk in the door, register, and go to class, it's not like it always has been. And you need to step it up and make sure that everybody gets recognized, not only for their academic achievement, but for the ability and for the skill that they can bring to the job. So, Ms. Moderator, I think that's all I can add to that right now, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wyatt. Next on our podium presentation will be Mr. Anthony Lee. Good morning. Good morning. I don't have a wife to introduce, but I'm not married. I've never been married. I don't have any children.
As far as me being here at Auburn and the Voting Rights Act, I would think that my inspiration came from my parents. Attorney Gray told you about the Gomillion versus Lightfoot case, which was essentially started the voting rights in Alabama during that time. My father was one of the plaintiffs in that very same case. Also, my father was very instrumental in me being a part of the Lee versus Macon County case, because he, along with Fred Gray, was very instrumental in us starting that whole process. After our adventures of our senior year in high school, when we graduated finally in Nova Sarga, my goal was just to continue desegregating everything that I could, because I felt like, with the backings of my parent, for one thing, and Attorney Gray, I had the courage and the fortitude to do things that I thought other people might not be so free to do. Plus, living in Tuskegee gave us a lot more freedom because of the Constitution. And Tuskegee was primarily black. So we did not have the white fringes and the white power structures to prevent us from doing things that we really wanted to do. So as a result of, after finishing Nova Sarga High School in '64, I had the courage to apply to and was accepted at Auburn, although Auburn was not my first choice at that time. The University of Alabama was my first choice because I wanted to be a lawyer then. But because I was already integrated, I said I'll try Auburn, because it wasn't when I first thought about it, because Mr. Frank had beat me here. But then I was accepted here, and I started here in '64, and I was very fortunate to have a fairly good 4 years of college, and I graduated being the first black to go 4 years and graduate. And I was very proud to be able to do that, because to me, this was opening the way for others to do the same thing, because it had already been done. So that was my privilege in being able to do this with the assistance of Attorney Gray, parents, and others. And Willie and I came here together, so we were here together, and we could face some of the consequences and problems that were there the first year, which was going to a football game. We had private escorts, which were state troopers. We had our own little seating area because no one would sit around us, and state troopers had to sort of like protect us from them, or I guess them from us, I'm not sure which. And also during our second year or third year, another guy from Tuskegee, Pete Peterson, came, and he was one of the first blacks to go out for the football team. He was a walk-on. And can you imagine a black person walking on to Auburn's football team then? His reception was not very good, but at least he opened the door so others could follow and be accepted to play football at Auburn. I have not been back here except for this year because I lived most of my life in California. The situation now that I see is, although we have a great football team, we came very, very close this year. But if you'll notice, the football team is predominantly black. But the cheerleaders, the majorettes, and things like that, we have to work on those situations, because we want it so that anybody can feel free to come here and participate as they see fit, barring none. So that's what and since I live here in Alabama now, back here in Tuskegee, I plan to do what I can from a local standpoint to help some of these situations here at Auburn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Next on our agenda and our final presenter for this morning is Mr. Samuel Pettijohn.
First of all, I would like to thank all who made this forum possible and who actually was part of inviting me here. Not sure that if there's an advantage to being last or not, but at least I had an opportunity to hear everyone else. I do have a little different story to tell, though, about how I came to Auburn. Actually, I'm from the state next door, from Georgia, and so when I graduated from high school, I found out that I liked physics. Actually, my senior year in high school, and really, a lot of people from my hometown did not go to college, and so didn't have a lot of areas that I was thinking of majoring in, but I did find that I liked physics, and so I decided I was going to major in physics. Of course, in Georgia, there were no schools that I was allowed to attend that offered a major in physics. So Tuskegee had an engineering program, and so I said, well, electrical engineering. So I enrolled in Tuskegee in an electrical engineering program, and after I took sophomore physics, a physics professor from USC, who actually had graduated from USC, Dr. Goldberg, told me that I really had done really well in sophomore physics, and that they were trying to start a physics program at Tuskegee. And anyway, recruited me to be part of the first physics program at Tuskegee. So I came back to school beginning of my junior year, and the program actually never got off the ground, so it had fallen through. So I went to register for classes, and there were no classes that they had for physics. So Dr. Goldberg said, why don't I go up to Auburn? I didn't even know Auburn was here, to be honest with you. So I actually didn't have a car or anything, so we had to take the bus every place. But anyway, Dr. Goldberg and I came to Auburn and just basically went to the physics department. And Dr. Askew was over the physics department. I guess was an assistant. He was a professor there. I don't think Dr. Carr was actually over I believe over the department. Anyway, we sort of made a deal on the spot to let me take classes. And Dr. Dr. Askew basically said, well, I'm really not an integrationist, but he can take the classes here. Okay. Now, at that time, I didn't know there were any other black students here, because there were 12,000 students, and there were only 7 black students, including Anthony and a few others. So I had to take the bus from Tuskegee each morning for classes. So I would take the bus from Tuskegee, come to Auburn, stay, and then go back to Tuskegee. And after I completed the first semester, Auburn, when I went to register for other classes, they basically said, well, you really can't stay here unless you really enroll here. You can't take classes and stay at Tuskegee. Now, when I went to my first physics class, all the students, white students, which are all the students here,